Welcome back to Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. In this video we are taking a look at the best build I have found for poison, and this build is a lot of fun to use. It's mainly going to be focusing on wizardry spells, but you can also use the weapon as well. So if we jump into my equipment and we take a look, I'm using the Sword of Yu the Great, and then for the gear I've also got the Evil Taoist set. That's because there is a set bonus known as the Instigator of Evil. And if we take a look at that, when you have 5 pieces of gear equipped, so you've got the entire gear set and you've also got the weapon, you're going to gain 2.6% spirit gain from deflecting, 2.8% elemental damage, and then you are going to get damage amplification, which is going to increase the damage taken from enemy attacks. This is damage amplification on enemy upon wizardry spells, and then we also have 7.7% extra damage from wizardry spells. So that's the main part of this build. I'm running just a random weapon, the cavalry halberd for my secondary, and then I've just got some random repeating crossbow and a bamboo bow for my ranged weapons. When it comes to the divine beast, I'm running Tenshi because you get damage to enemies with negative effects. You also get 7.2% enemy status effect accumulation, so they build up poison effects faster. You get power drop on enemy upon wizardry spell. Then you also get an extra 4.3% wizardry spell damage. So when it comes to this build, you're wanting to get as much toxin attack power as possible. I've embedded the weapon, I've embedded the gear so that we can increase the amount of damage we're dealing with toxic, like poison. And you'll see here that I've got spell duration and damage dealt on the sword because you can't do much when it comes to toxic, toxin stuff. Then on the gear, which I'd say is the most important parts, we've got damage to enemies with poison, we've got poison accumulation on enemies, and we've got toxin attack power. Then we've got the exact same thing, plus we've got wizardry spell spirit consumption, so when we're using our wizardry spells it consumes less spirit. Then on the third piece, because I've only got it in 2-star at the moment, we've got the toxin attack power, and we've got poison accumulation on enemies. Then on the final piece, which is the legs, we've got exactly the same as what we have on the cloak. So damage to enemies with poison, poison accumulation on enemies, wizardry spell spirit consumption, and toxin attack power. This is a very, very light gear set, so you're going to be incredibly agile. You're going to be able to move around fast. You won't consume spirit when you're dodging and things like that. Then when it comes to the accessories, I've got the belt hook with toxin damage, and I've got some health on there. Then we've got less damage received. We've got toxin damage on the bronze die. And then when it comes to the wizardry spells, my favourite combo is Venom Snare and Molten Calamity Thorn. But some of these you do need to have a high morale rank, so you're not going to be able to use them as soon as you start a mission. So that's why we have Thorn Shot. It releases curse bolts that create thorns on contact with enemies or terrain. When enemies step on the thorns, they slow down for a little bit. So if there's a group of enemies, you can slow a couple of them and focus on one. Then we've got Toxin Weapon, which needs 7 morale. For a certain period of time, it enchants your current melee weapon with Toxin. And then the combo, I always use Venom Snare because it releases a curse bolt to the front of you. It's got quite a decent range. It forms a poison fog around the enemy that it hits, and the fog will cause damage over time to enemies touching it, and it's such a powerful wizardry spell. But when you've hit the enemy with the Venom Snare, after a couple of ticks, they're going to kind of flinch. Then you want to come in close range with the Molten Calamity Thorn. It releases a metal phase attack that deals damage to enemies it touches. If those enemies are inflicted with any ailments, they will be fully cured, and they will take additional damage corresponding to the number of ailments cured. So when it comes to your virtue, what you're going to put basically points into when you're leveling up, and when it comes to morale, Venom Snare is the highest you need. You need 40 points in the metal virtue, and you're going to need 12 morale rank. That's why we're doing this on this specific mission, because you already start on 12. And then if we take a look at the stats here, you'll see I've got 707 health. I've got 28 points in the wood virtue. I've got 48 in metal, and I put 40 in water. And then if I go to the special effects tab, you can see all of the stats here and their bonuses. Like we've got 36 luck. We've got, for an example, 28.1% poison accumulation. And then it goes down to damage amplification on enemy upon wizardry spell. So when it comes to leveling up and putting your points into the virtues, I'm currently level 114, and with the water one, I've only got it at 40 because I was trying out some of the different wizardry spells. You do not need the water virtue this high, unless you are going to be using your weapon a little bit more than I do. I'm currently just pretty much focusing on wizardry spells, unless I get a very good opportunity to use my weapon. When it comes to the metal virtue, you don't need to go too over the top. I went to 48 because after 48, you kind of stop getting as much of the, like where it decreases your spirit consumption rate for wizardry spells, it goes up like 0.2% each level, then it eventually starts slowing down because there are soft caps in this game. So I made sure it was over 40 so I could use all of the wizardry spells, but then I didn't go too over the top because it's just not that much of an increase. And then if I was to take the water levels off and put them into any other thing, I'd probably put quite a few into the metal virtue just to increase it a little bit more, and then some into wood because this increases your health a lot more than any other virtue. So they're the ones you need to focus on really, is mainly metal, and then I would second woods. Like, you don't really have to put any into water if you don't want to. It all depends on which wizardry spells you are wanting to use. Then when it comes to your companions, I would probably use Zhao Yun so that you've got the morale rank points gain, so you're like boosting your morale rank faster to get to 12 morale so you can use Venom Snare. And then the main one you want to focus on is Hong Jing, because the warrior effect is wizardry spell spirit consumption and wizardry spell damage. So you're just going to be even stronger if you have Hong Jing as a companion through your run. But if we come out of here, and we're going to take down essentially what you would call the trash mobs, but I want to show you this build. It's so much fun to use, because you can just, like, you can dodge everywhere, and you're not going to consume any spirit because the gear is so light. And then if we get this guy's attention, I can enchant my weapon with Toxic, and I'm going to deal extra damage with that. So you'll see that this guy is just, like, he's taking poison damage the whole time. Or what you can do, if you want to, is you can use the Thorn Shot, which is going to slow them down a little bit. It gives you more time to sort of prepare yourself for the fight and stuff. And it deals decent damage as well. You can see the damage that it's dealing. And it also doesn't consume too much spirit. And then if I chuck the Venom Snare at an enemy, the thing is, you'll see there, it doesn't track the target. So you do need to make sure that they're not really going to turn any corners. But you'll see right there, we've got the flinch, and the guy's just taking continuous damage over time. And then if you wanted to chuck another one, you can. It just refreshes the poison and stuff. And there you go. I've barely taken any damage, a few enemies down. Got some loot, it's a +7, 3-star. And then with this guy, the archers, they are really, really weak, so they don't stand a chance with this at all. Then there's another one over here. We do exactly the same thing. That's just instant kill. And then I want to try and separate these two, because I want to show you my combo of the Calamity Thorn and Venom Snare. So I've got this guy on his own. I'm going to use Venom Snare. Then when he flinches, look at the damage. That's nearly 1,000 damage just by using that combo. If we quickly go back to my equipment, that is using Venom Snare, and then we use the Molten Calamity Thorn. It's such a powerful combo, and I know some people are going to say, oh yeah, but you're just attacking the trash mob. So, if we get rid of this guy that sits here, so this dude in front of me, a couple of morale levels lower than me, but I wanted to show you because these have a decent health pool. I would class this as an elite enemy. So if I use Venom Snare, wait till he stands still. I use Venom Snare, and then as soon as he flinches, come in with the Molten Calamity Thorn, and look at that, it's nearly 1,000 damage. The guy's dead. He didn't stand a chance. This build is so much fun to use. So moving from let's make our armor shine over to a boss fight in the sub-battlefield known as the Fearless Blade, which is also in part 6. This isn't going to make every single enemy in the game flinch, but you can just keep chucking Venom Snare at enemies over and over again. You will need to, like, especially in boss fights, you will need to deflect a couple of attacks just so that you can get your spirit built back up. But you'll see that as well as the fatal strikes, as well as your normal attacks, using Venom Snare, when you get an opportunity, if you use the Molten Calamity Thorn, you're going to deal a lot of extra damage to the boss. And it's not going to necessarily be incredibly easy. You can't breeze your way through bosses and stuff, but it's going to be a more chilled, laid back sort of fight when you're against bosses, because you can just keep your distance. You can use the Venom Snare, keep yourself at range. There's a lot less risk than using something melee based. But I am going to be checking out a lot of different builds. I'm going to do some melee ones. I'll have a look at other status effects or elements, whatever you want to call it. But that is my poison build, the build that I'm going to say is the best for poison in Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. And that is going to do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts and stuff about this game in the comments, and check out this video if you want to see other content on the channel. I will see you in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.